thank you all for joining us today. Appreciate it. Coach, if you want to just maybe give us a brief, your brief thoughts on where this team's at so far at 3-1 and getting ready to open Patriot League play.
Yeah, thanks for doing this and getting on and giving us a chance here to talk. I think we're in a pretty good position, as I told the team yesterday, being 3-1 after a tough month with some good opponents. I think is a good place to be. Certainly would have liked to play better against a really good opponent on Saturday, but I think we've learned a lot about ourselves the past month, and even going back into the scrimmages, we have had a great stretch of competitions against really good teams, and given us a sense of who we are as a team and what we need to improve upon as we start to head into conference play here.
Awesome. Coach, we'll just let Tim Nolan and Bill Wagner switch off for
Yep.
questions here moving forward. Just a brief introduction for you with Tim. He's taken over for us with the radio sports magazine show for us. So he had Jack Norton as a guest a couple weeks ago. He's also going to be joining us and doing color for 2 of the broadcasts for us this fall or this spring,
Great.
excuse me.
Good to meet you, Tim.
Hey, Coach, likewise. First question I have for you would be, and I asked Jack something similar. You graduate 17 seniors, and then you get off to a 3-1 start here. What has impressed you the most with the way that your guys have gone out and competed here through 4 games?
Well, I just think the culture that we've been trying to develop over my time here is now at a place where it's kind of plug and play, where the guys understand the standards that we all expect of each other, not just from the top down, but more importantly from player to player. And that takes time, and I think this senior class has really embraced the idea of the team concept and the things that are important to us, and how we operate and how we live up to a standard and hold each other accountable. And I think we saw that in the first several games where they were team wins. They were team games, and Saturday was a team loss. It wasn't one person's responsibility. The team just didn't perform up to the standard that is necessary. So I'm most proud of this senior group for embracing it through their time here and really putting their stamp on it and making that the forefront of whatever success we're going to have, and certainly putting the responsibility on any failures on the team.
What do you want to take from that Penn State game and really apply to this Patriot League opener?
When you play teams like that are certainly consistently at the top of our sport, I think it serves a few different purposes. Number one, it's games guys want to play in, right? I mean, kids come here to play really good opponents and play a tough schedule, and playing a team like Penn State certainly allows you to do that. Secondly, you want to give your team a chance to have some out-of-conference wins that will help build a resume for hopefully some postseason play later on in the year. But lastly, most importantly, it gives you an opportunity to really evaluate yourself and learn against a really good opponent what you need to improve upon. And I think for us, we realize that competing and playing hard are 2 different things. Playing hard is one aspect of competition. We have to always bring that aspect of playing hard to the table. But in addition, if we want to compete and win against a team like Penn State and into the conference, competing at this level is not just playing hard. It's focusing on the details. It's executing in the moment. It's dealing with failure, handling success. And against Penn State, we just didn't do that consistently enough in order to have a chance to win at the end.
Thank you.
Wags?
Joe, what did you feel you learned from the Penn State loss? I mean, obviously it's a tough ask to beat the 10th ranked team in the country on its home field, but I know you have high expectations. What did you learn from that loss?
Well, I think we have got to be true to who we are defensively. I felt like we had some fundamental breakdowns in what we typically do well defensively. We prepared for something different than they gave us on the offensive end from a defensive standpoint, but that's not anybody's fault but mine, in the sense that we didn't really focus on specifically what they did. But what they did is truly what we've always been good at. When teams attack us in front of the goal, I've said it to the team, Coach Orson pretty much wrote the book on how defense is played when teams attack us from the wing. Other coaches call him for the answer. And that has been our bread and butter. And I felt like we let each other down there. Certainly from a coaching standpoint, we were reminded that we have to always go back to our basics and fundamentals during the week, regardless of what we expect the other team to do. And then from a playing standpoint, we have to take ownership for no matter what the team we expect them to throw at us, if they attack us in the way that Penn State did, we have to stick to our basics and our fundamentals and be really sound there. So defensively, we learned that. And, for the offensive side and even in the middle of the field, when you play a team like that, it's about being fundamentally sound. It's dodging hard, which we didn't do early in the game. It's literally running to the man you're passing to and focusing on your basic fundamentals from stick work, where I thought some of the turnovers that we had were certainly good plays by Penn State, but they were also mental and physical lapses on our players' parts. So we have to continue to just really harp on those basics of the game to give us a chance to get more comfortable against teams like Penn State and certainly moving into the conference play here.
So looking at the numbers, two things really stand out. In terms of shots on goal, 13 shots on goal. That's not a whole lot. It's not going to generate the type of points you need. And then ground balls, Navy prides itself on winning the ground ball battle. To get beaten 39-18 in that category, is that disappointing?
It's extremely disappointing. And certainly that was a point of emphasis, not only in film yesterday, but in practice yesterday afternoon. We aim for 40 ground balls in each game, which is a tough number to get to. We call that getting a loony. We feel like if we can get a loony in any game, we're going to have a really good chance to win. And we came far short of that goal. In the third quarter, we only picked up one ground ball statistically. Certainly the face-off game hurt us in the second half, but it's still no excuse. We should never be in a position against any opponent where we're dominated on the ground as much as we were in the statistical category of ground balls. So we're going back to working on that more consistently and make it a point of emphasis. Penn State's very skilled and very good off the ground. Sometimes the ball bounces their way, but it doesn't bounce their way 22 more times than it bounces our way. So we have to take responsibility for that lack of effort there.
And the lack of shots on goal?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of that's time of possession. When we charted time in the box, Penn State had the ball for 29 minutes and 10 seconds, and we only had the ball in the box for 20 minutes. We had 20 possessions, and eight of those were empty where there was no shot taken. That's a terrible stat, right? Typically in a game, you're going to have 4 to 5 empty possessions where you just don't get a shot off, but we had 8. So when you look at it, when you're playing a team like Penn State, you've got to tilt the field in your favor from time of possession and possession standpoint. They had 41 possessions and almost 30 minutes of time in the offensive box, where we had half of that and a third less time in the box with 8 empty possessions. So that comes down to some poise, decision making, pressure on their part. Right? They play a pretty aggressive style of defense. That they're going to make some plays. You expect that when you play a team like that, but certainly we'd have liked to get that shot total up into the 20s on goal, especially on a day where I didn't think their goalie was at his best. He only had, I think, 7 saves, and he's typically pretty strong in the cage. We just didn't put enough pressure on them consistently from defense to offense, and then when we got into the offensive box.
Well, speaking of goalies, Dan Daly stood tall in face of a large barrage of shots, 19 saves. It's a career high. What can you say about Dan? I mean, that's a real step forward for him to be able to face high quality shooters. And I mean, he kept you in it.
He did. And, he kept it in this early. We've talked, right, the past few games, Bill, where Dan has not started well. And we changed his warm up a little bit and we shifted his mindset. He did a great job of shifting his mindset prior to the game. And we shifted his warm up a little bit, which may have helped. It may not have, but he had 19 saves, and I think he had his best quarter he's ever played in the first quarter against Penn State, and overall his best game that he had. And it's a shame that we waste an opportunity like that, but we're thankful that he has that, and hopeful that in the future he can give us that performance when we need it again.
Last one for me before I throw it back to Tim. Boston University, they're off to a 4-0 start. What are you expecting to see out of the Terriers on Saturday?
I expect chaos from them. They play a very aggressive style. They're going to 10-man ride us probably at our pregame meal and throughout the entire day. So we're expecting a wild scene in the middle of the field every time we get possession of it off the faceoff, off the defensive end, trying to clear it. That is the first thing we have to make sure we manage is that chaotic atmosphere from defense to offense and getting settled in the offensive box. And offensively, they do such a good job of giving their players freedom. Sometimes they don't look great, but most of the time they look pretty good because they've got high skill. They've got some young kids who are playing at a high level and have confidence. They're 4-0 for a reason. They're good. They're well coached. They have a good plan, and it's worked for them the first 4 games. We've had some success defensively against them in the past, but defensively here we've got to raise our bar a little bit more and perform better against a really good offensive team.
Coach, going back to how you said you challenge the guys in terms of ground balls and how you don't want that difference to happen again. This is a BU team, as you mentioned, that's going to get after you. When you see that play out in practice, how do you know if the guys get the memo, or do you need to wait for game action again to see if this actually plays out in the statute?
Yeah, Tim, it's a great question. Listen, our guys always get the memo in practice. That they're great young men and they do everything we ask. They're compliant. They work hard. I don't worry about them answering the bell in a practice setting. But the truth is, the truth serum comes on Saturday. As a helicopter comes by my window, the truth serum comes on Saturday. That's when you're going to truly find out if the message has sunk in and the guys are confident enough to perform the way they have in practice. Heck, if it were yesterday, I would tell you that we're going to get 60 ground balls the way we practiced, but I know that's not true. The enemy gets a say in this. Boston's going to certainly come in and be aggressive and be sharp. And we've got to just take the lessons we learned and hopefully perform well on Saturday.
And again, I know it's early, but in your time in Annapolis, is there any key characteristic that has set this team apart from the prior ones you've coached with the midshipmen? Has kind of a theme emerged with this current group?
I think their acceptance of the team concept, and that's not to disparage the teams we've had in the past, but the teams we've had in the past, we've had a little bit more star power in the sense that we've had some guys who can break out and have 5-goal performances. We've had some guys that have been the marquee matchup for teams to focus on. I think with this group, it's a little bit less of that, and there's kind of a bigger menu, and guys accept that. I think they really enjoy that concept that on any given day, it can be somebody else's day, but more it's about the team trying to play their best collectively to put together a good performance so you have a chance to win.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just have one quick one, Joe. Can you tell us a little bit about our new offensive coordinator, Ken Brochart, and what you believe he has brought to the program so far in just these few games?
Yeah, well, first, I will say that of all the guys we've had, certainly we were blessed to have a guy like Brad, and Coach Cottle gave us a great go-between last year, and I miss him. But, Kenny wants to be here, right? I mean, he truly appreciates this place, and I'm sure Stacy and Scott have seen Kenny walking in the yard every morning and on Rip Miller Field listening to the national anthem, like literally every single day, right? And to me, that's so important, right? Because I think an appreciation for where we are, what we're able to do, the blessings that we have to coach and help lead these young men that's what matters most. And I think that translates into his care for the guys, like this morning, Henry Tolker, who's kind of been in a slump, right before the national anthem, Kenny was working with him on the field, and yesterday was Carter Ash. And he really takes that individual development to heart and he makes it personal and he's consistent with it. He's been consistent since the day he got here. And that's not to say that guys in the past haven't done that, but really Kenny, that's the foundation for what he does. And I think the schemes that he they're pretty good. There's a lot more ball movement. It's more the team concept. The ball is spinning. We focus on pass counts and shifting the field from one end to the other. And guys understand that, and they're getting better. And it takes some time to do that against really good opponents. But it's a fun offense to play in. not only because anybody can go off at any point, but more the concepts allow for that team concept to shine when it's done well.
Joe, Will Gores is leading you in scoring with 12 points, 6 goals, 6 assists. As my friend Ed DeChellis likes to say, you're now on the scouting report. What do you think teams are going to do? I mean, we already saw that they started long polling him against Towson. I don't know what Penn State did, but he's now on the scouting report. They're going to have a way to defend him, and he's a young kid who's going to have to learn how to adjust.
Yeah, like I told you 2 weeks ago, the kid loves lacrosse and he's improved tremendously. Certainly his development gives us another significant option. It also takes the load off of some other guys. They've got a choice to make on that front end when he's out there. Do you put your number one on him or do you put your number one on Matt Haley, which opens up things for one or the other? If there's a day where he's kind of held in check, maybe it's a day that Mac has a better day because of the matchup. When he's on a short stick, he's a challenge. You've got a game plan for that. You've got a game plan for him coming out of the box. He's extremely creative with the ball and the stick, and he's only going to continue to improve. He's only 4 games into this, and he's played part-time. So as the minutes tick by, and he makes some mistakes, and he makes some plays, he's only going to improve and become more consistent. But you're right. Now the spotlight is on him a little bit more, and he's going to have to deal with that. And that's part of his growth and maturation. And to me, that's the fun part of coaching and being a part of teams is watching kids put in tough positions, challenging positions, and figure out a way to be at their best in that moment.
You were looking for some help to, ease the load on Zach Hayashi. Colin Shadowans has seen a lot more time. What is Colin showing you? He's a guy that was very highly acclaimed coming out of high school, had put up amazing face-off numbers at Severn Park High. Do you feel like Colin Shadowans is turning into an impact player, a guy that could help Navy?
Yeah, he is. I mean, he's coming off some pretty substantial injuries, and he's finally back to as close to 100% as he's going to have this year. He's a tough kid, former wrestler, never complains, understands his role, and whatever opportunity he gets, he's going to make the most of. He's got quick hands. He's getting better with the ball in his stick. He's understanding it's not just getting the ball, it's about getting the ball to our team and gaining possession, and that's going to continue to improve. But he works as hard as anybody we've had here, and he doesn't say much. He will do anything to help this team win. And I think in the next few weeks, we're going to start to see more of him because he's earned it.
Lastly, for me, as you look around the Patriot League, obviously you're starting off with a Boston team that's unbeaten. Army is also unbeaten and has a pretty impressive win on the resume. What are you seeing? Is the Patriot League look pretty talent-laden? I know Loyola's really been struggling early, but they've got talent and probably be heard from before this is all said and done. What's your take as you look around the Patriot League?
Yeah, it's incredible what the coaches have done in this league. They've put themselves in great position. I think all of us are scheduling at a high level. Even Loyola, they lose an overtime game to Maryland and a 1-goal game to Hopkins. So they're right there, right? And Army is certainly having a great year and doing their things that they've done with their star players and some of the other guys who have stepped up for them. Really impressed with Colgate's last week with 2 monster wins against really good opponents. And then the other teams in our league, Lehigh is right there in close games. And Lafayette looks like even with their senior guys leaving last year with the new faces on their roster, they're performing pretty well. So the next couple of weeks are going to start to tell the story of what the Patriot League is going to look like. And I think it's going to be pretty exciting, the next month or so.
Thanks, Joe.
All right.
Hey, has Coach Cottle been reaching out to you to give you unsolicited advice?
Unsolicited. He's there. He's never going away.
I'll ask one. Wags touched on about the Patriot League. It seems like this league kind of gets overlooked when people start talking about a 2-bid league. You got the way everyone is scheduling, including Navy, and some of the big wins already. Do you feel like this league can be a 2-bid NCAA tournament league?
Absolutely. I think, look, the way we've all scheduled, and we're stealing some wins from those stereotypical big boys at this point. It depends on how the season shakes out.
Sure.
I see a scenario where this league can be a 3-bid league. I mean, when we get to Patriot League tournament time, there's a likely scenario that 4 teams have RPIs in the 20s, right? In the top 20. And that is great for us because now those games against each other, they only help your math and help the numbers, So that's a credit to the coaches of not shying away from scheduling. Listen, the Penn State game, well, you never want to lose. It doesn't hurt you as much if they continue to win, right? So in a lot of ways, that helps your resume when you play games like that. And I think a lot of guys in our league now understand that formula. And we all know, like, the path to the NCAA tournament, the only guarantee you have is the Patriot League. And I think that's what makes it obviously so competitive. But we've done a good job, all of us, the first month of the year, putting the league in position to have a chance to help each other out as the season progresses.
There's been quite a few big upsets, not just in the Patriot League, but nationally. Do you feel like there's more parity now than ever before in men's college lacrosse?
Yeah, look, I've seen it for the last 10, maybe 12 or 15 years since my days at Marquette. The thing that I always say is our sport continues to grow at the bottom of the pyramid, right, with more young people playing. And then at the top of the pyramid, it doesn't grow that much. So what happens is certainly the top 50 players are going to be gobbled up by certain programs most of the time, right? Maybe a few leak to programs that don't traditionally get them. But then that next rung and the rung down, they're better players. They're better coached, they've played more lacrosse, and there's more of them. So because programs are investing, everyone's got full-time coaches, there's resources in our sport, the development, now you've got better players to develop at a quicker rate. So the quality of play becomes that much better, and the games become that much more exciting.
Thank you.
Tim, anything else from you?
No, I'm all set, Coach. Thank you so much for your time.
Great. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you being here.
Coach, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Wags.
Thanks, Joe.
All right.
Thanks,
See
Joe.
you guys. Bye-bye.